And that's one of the things that happens through the MK Ultra programs is like that splitting of your consciousness, right? And we basically propose within A Clockwork Shining that through that trauma was what had unlocked Danny's abilities.
Good evening, listeners, brave navigators of the enigmatic and the concealed. Have you ever felt the pull of the unanswered, the allure of the mysteries that shroud our existence? For more than a decade, a unique comic publisher has dared to dive into these mysteries, unafraid of the secrets they might uncover. This audacious entity is Paranoid American. Welcome to the mystifying universe of the Paranoid American podcast.
Launched in the year 2012, Paranoid American has been on a mission to decipher the encrypted secrets of our world. From the unnerving enigma of MK-ULTRA mind control to the clandestine assemblies of secret societies. From the awe-inspiring frontiers of forbidden technology to the arcane patterns of occult symbols in our very own pop culture. They have committed to unveiling the concealed realities that lie just beneath the surface. Join us as we navigate these intricate landscapes, decoding the hidden scripts of our society and challenging the accepted perceptions of reality.
Folks, I've got a big problem on my hands. There's a company called Paranoid American making all these funny memes and comics. Now, I'm a fair guy. I believe in free speech as long as it doesn't cross the line. And if these AI-generated memes dare to make fun of me, they're crossing the line.
This is your expedition into the realm of the extraordinary, the secret, the shrouded. Come with us as we sift through the world's grand mysteries, question the standardized narratives, and brave the cryptic labyrinth of the concealed truth. So strap yourselves in, broaden your horizons, and steel yourselves for a voyage into the enigmatic heart of the Paranoid American podcast, where each story, every image, every revelation brings us one step closer to the elusive truth.
I think two of my favorite topics are Stanley Kubrick and mind control, and we're going to talk about both of them today with Ryder Lee, who is the editor and the director of the latest in Clockwork Kubrick movies. This is The Clockwork Shining that was written by Jay Weidner, right? This is the third in his series, and I think we've covered the first two on our Under the Dock series. So if you haven't seen those, you should check out our reviews of those. Ryder Lee, man, welcome to the show. Long overdue. Appreciate you coming by and hanging out with me.
No problem, my friend. Thanks for having me on. I think this is the first show that we've done just me and you. We've been on other people's shows together, but never.
Yeah, I got to deal with other people's dumb questions. I got good ones.
But yeah, I'm excited to be here. Excited to talk A Clockwork Shining because it keeps getting. We might end up doing a sequel to this movie at some point in the future. But I'm currently making a new documentary, which is on the psychic spy, government psychic spy program, the Stargate project. I'm working on that. So that would be the next one. And then we're planning on doing a sequel to JFK X as well. So yeah, I got a lot in the works, working on a lot, busy. So you know how that is, brother.
Yeah, just a lot of light topics, light reading, easy stuff to just bring up at the Thanksgiving Day table, I assume. All this stuff, right?
Oh yeah, bro. One of the other day, some of my friends asked me, like, "What are you doing? What kind of movie you working on now?" And I'm like, "The government psychic spy program." They didn't ask me any questions, bro. I was like,
That's
dude,
probably healthy.
yeah, but is that not an interesting topic? Like for like normal people, would normal people not think that that's interesting? Like I expected some kind of follow up question to it, but there wasn't any other follow up question. It was just nothing.
It's one of those questions that maybe subconsciously people realize before they even ask you to go into more depth. They're thinking to themselves, how does that help me pay my mortgage? And if there's no foreseeable way that any of this information helps them pay their mortgage or go on a cruise a little bit sooner, then it probably just doesn't register. There's actually some sort of a defense mechanism that's like, halt, do not ask any follow-up questions. This man will not help you pay your mortgage. I think that all that kind of happens at not a conscious level, but it's absolutely happening beneath the surface Because I always ask that same question, right? If I bring up one of the OG sort of MK Ultra sub projects where they had someone standing behind a two-way mirror and dosing just normal people and civilians and hookers and military personnel with LSD, and then trying to see what kind of secrets they could give up. That's all I want to hear about until I got every single detail. But usually it comes up and it's just like a passing, oh, that's an interesting trivia, but I already saw Jeopardy yesterday, so I don't care today.
Yeah, it's so weird. It's like people's curiosity is just like not there. Like I could talk for hours about this. I mean, obviously I do. You know, I have a whole podcast and a channel where I talk about this stuff every single week, and same with you. But it's like, what do these normal everyday people even think about, dude? I don't even know what they think about. And I actually ran into someone the other day that said that they don't have an inner dialogue and that they don't have memories. I'm like,
This
what
is
does
like
that
people that
even
say they
mean?
don't have dreams.
No, they literally said, bro, that they did not have an imagination.
Like, I don't know how to even perceive that. It sounds like a humble brag of the worst kind.
Yeah, and they were like, "Oh, well, all I remember is facts." And I was like, "Okay, well, how can you remember something that how do you remember your childhood?" They're
I
like,
guess
"Oh,
it's
well, I just remember the facts of my childhood. Like, I don't whenever I think about it, I don't see anything." And I'm like, "What?" There's really people out there that, like, don't have an imagination. Like, I've heard the one, like, no inner dialogue, and I guess I can might be able to wrap my head around that, but I think that they're getting the inner dialogue thing confused. It's not like you actually hear a voice in your head, it's that you're just talking to yourself inside of your head, like, your thoughts is your inner dialogue. Whenever you think, you're talking to yourself, and I think people get that confused. So I can understand that one, but not an imagination and not being able to see memories. Whenever I think of something, I automatically see it in my mind. Is that
Well,
not
it's
how it
very
is with you?
visual. I don't know if this is even settled science, but when you start getting into the realms of NLP and even just like normal learning techniques, that some people are visual learners, and then you've got kinetic learners, which are sometimes the people that have to be drawing or doodling or scribbling or moving when they're learning something new, because the way that their body processes new information is with like kinetic movement. And then there's like, for example, someone that says, I don't have memories. Well, the olfactory glands would probably say that that's wrong if you have olfactory glands, because that's supposed to bypass even the logic layers of our brain and connect directly to memories. So I think that it's probably more of a case of suppressed memories. And now I'm concerned. Like, why? What happened to you in your traumatic life that every memory just immediately gets suppressed? Like the rest of your consciousness is like, we're not ready. We're still processing something.
Yeah, I think that that's exactly what happened. Is some kind of traumatic event happened to them, and that gets into the MK Ultra stuff as well. And also, the new documentary that I'm doing is also kind of tied into A Clockwork Shining as well, which we didn't really get too deep into the whole thing with Danny, because if you watched The Shining, you'll know that the doctor that comes to visit Wendy and Danny at their apartment in Boulder says that his abilities arose whenever he was injured by Jack. So Jack came home from work one day and his papers were all thrown out across the floor and everything, and then he yanked Danny up by his arm and broke his arm, injured his arm. And it was after that point that Danny started receiving these visions. And then the doctor said, "Oh, well, that's normally due to what we call self hypnosis, which is like a traumatic event comes to you and then happens to you, and then you repress that. You repress that event, and that's one of the things that happens through the MK Ultra programs is like that splitting of your consciousness, right? And we basically propose within A Clockwork Shining that through that trauma was what had unlocked Danny's abilities, his psychic abilities, essentially, right? And the psychic stuff is also connected to the MK Ultra stuff because there's 4 MK Ultra sub projects that were dedicated to the research of psychic abilities. And that's what even got me down the road to look into MK Ultra and the Stargate Psychic Spy program to begin with, because I was reading through all of the MK Ultra documents, and I'm seeing all of these sub projects that are all linked to psychic and what they call it, parapsychology and
Yeah.
like hypnosis and
There's
stuff.
ESP, astral
Yeah.
projection, OBEs, out of body experiences,
Yes.
just a huge umbrella.
Yes. And I'm like, holy shit, what's going on here? And then I knew at that point that the government had a psychic spy program. And I was like, oh, how are these things connected? And then that's when I reached out to all the people that I could possibly reach out to and send an email that were verified in the Stargate Psychic Spy unit at Fort Meade, Maryland, and brought them on my show. And then we started talking. And then I'd already had the plans to do A Clockwork Shining. And that was, essentially around MK Ultra. And then I was like, okay, well, I want to do this psychic spy documentary as well. So that's the next one that I'm working on. So I'm really excited for it. I'm in the pre-production phase, so I will be filming it here really soon.
How much credit do you give the Project Monarch program, which, as far as I'm aware, is more rumor? I don't think that it's ever been declassified, no papers released. It wasn't in the church commission hearings. It's sort of a thing that's been created out of assumptions and guesses as to what the government's doing. The biggest source that I think I know of Project Monarch would be like Fritz Springmeier and some of the other writings that came out of the mid and late '90s and early 2000s. How much credit, based on, I guess, like a Fritz Springmeier style description of Project Monarch, how much of that do you think is accurate?
I would say that, and for me personally, I would say that a large percentage of it is accurate. I mean, the a lot of the documents for MK Ultra were destroyed. So I think it's estimated and guesstimated, which we really don't know, and we never will know, just like we're never going to know about the Epstein client list, right? It's all wrapped up now. It's nothing.
Well,
that
there was no
you
client list. That's the catch
know-
22.
there is one, yeah, just like there wasn't another 300 MK Ultra programs either, that all the documents were destroyed of, right? So it's that game that that you kind of play. And then I think that the ones that were destroyed were even more horrendous than the ones that were kept, because you're going to want to destroy the ones that you really don't want people to know about, the ones that because you can kind of brush some of these other MK Ultra programs off as in like for like experimentation. Of course it was horrendous. Some of the very first ones were done at Edgewood Arsenal on Army personnel, right? They would have Army personnel come in and they would have them, they would volunteer to be a part of these, they would call them chemical experiments. And they didn't tell them what it was going to be, what kind of chemicals were being used. They would just have them inhale this substance, and then they would essentially kind of lose their mind. They would go into like a psychosis. They would even do ones where they would take them out and like they would do like an in-field simulation, where they would simulate a battle scenario and have all these Army personnel out in the field, and then they were just busting giant barrels of this substance called BZ, which BZ is like 100 times more powerful than LSD. So they would then crack open all these containers of BZ and then just let the substance flood the entire battlefield. And then all these soldiers would be hit with this substance. And then they would be out there like calculating how they would maneuver and like what they would do in like a battle scenario if they got hit with this drug. And then they would bring them inside and then essentially like interrogate them. Like ask them all these like weird, crazy questions, and a lot of those people would end up like losing their mind. And then they tried to cover that entire thing up. They were like, "Oh well, that never happened. We don't have any record of any of that." And then some of the people, they're still alive today. They finally got to the ones that like kept at them, like the Army personnel that was a part of these programs, like kept the hammer on them, they ended up admitting and then giving them some sort of reparations. Not a lot, of course, it's a freaking government, but some kind of reparations for the horrendous things that they endured for being a volunteer for these experiments that the army was running.
Yeah, sorry about the BZ thing. Here's 40 acres and a mule. Like kick off, and I just want to point out that that BZ was probably not fun for at least three reasons. One is like we're talking barrels, right? This was a massive dose that you wouldn't have ever even opted for recreationally. Probably more than 10 to 20 times that, and I'm being conservative. The second is that you're in the military being interrogated and forced to simulate warfare. So this is not hanging back and looking at faces in clouds. And the third one is that there was no frame of reference. You're not out on the battlefield thinking, oh, this must be that psychedelic thing that all the kids are talking about, or this must be like that thing that I've already experienced in a smaller dose. I can relate to that. Maybe this is just a strong version of it. You got people that have never even considered this alternate state of perception that are now in the thick of it and in the worst environment possible. I probably second only to a clinical environment where you've got a bunch of doctors probing and making notes and you're sitting on like a stainless steel slat, right?
And that's the whole thing too, is like taking some sort of hallucinogenic drug knowingly and knowing what to expect out of it. And then there's a difference between that and then being unknowingly dosed with LSD. I mean, Frank Olson is one of the prime examples of that. They were doing this for there's a whole the thing that Sidney Gottlieb did was he like unknowingly dosed a bunch of people at like a freaking CIA party. He put LSD in their alcoholic drinks. There's even reports of them doing like LSD aerosols and like apartments and stuff. And that's what we kind of conclude in A Clockwork Shining as to the reason why Jack is like going out of his mind is because Lloyd dosed him with some sort of hallucinogenic drug. And it only makes sense because right after he takes that first drink of alcohol from Lloyd the bartender within the movie The Shining by Stanley Kubrick, that's when he goes up in the room 237 and he hallucinates the woman up there, the very attractive woman that then turns into an elderly woman. And then once he leaves there, he goes back up to the apartment upstairs and him and Wendy's apartment. And then Wendy's like, oh, what did you see in the room? And he was like, I didn't see a goddamn thing. So it's like, he knows, and Danny is seeing the stuff because Danny's psychic and he's had trauma. And that explains why Wendy did not see anything throughout the entire movie until the very end, after she had been traumatized by Jack trying to kill her, and then going downstairs and seeing Halloran's body dead in the hallway. Then she starts seeing stuff, right? So it's trauma, drugs mixed with more trauma is what it is. And then they had to break Jack down in a different way because, Danny had already been broken down from being a child and Jack injuring his arm. That we already established that he'd already been traumatized. So he already had that ability essentially unlocked in his mind. They had to break Jack down through drugs. And then they broke Wendy down through trauma. Again, and then she starts seeing the hallucinations. That's when she sees the guy in the hallway with the head split. Great party, isn't it? That is symbolizing the mind fracturing that Wendy is literally going through. He has a crack down the center of his skull, bro. Like, if that's not symbolic, I don't know what is. That's the most symbolic thing of the entire movie, is showing you the mind fracturing that Wendy is currently going through. And all the things that Jack went through the entire movie is all consistent with MK-ULTRA mind control. The psychic driving that he's doing. He's writing the same thing over and over and over again in his notebook. That's an MK-ULTRA technique that was established in Canada through Hugh and Cameron, which he actually got from the Nazis during World War II. And he started doing it whenever they subleased out the MK-ULTRA projects and tried to shove it more north into Canada. He started doing that. So it was trauma, depatterning, drugging, then the psychic driving. So then they would implant new thoughts and new ideas into the subject's head to make them believe something that might not actually even be real, or vice versa, make them believe something that isn't real. It can work either way. And we also see the evidence of that with Sirhan, the RFK assassination. Okay, the same thing in his notebook. RFK must die. RFK must die. Over and over and over again, sketched out in his notebook. I mean, you can Google that right now. It's in the movie, of course, but just type in Sirhan's notebook, and you're going to see RFK must die over and over and over. It's a psychic driving technique. It's to program the subconscious mind to do something that they otherwise wouldn't do. And this is also used on us on a daily basis, right? It's programming. They're just throwing the same shit out there. That's why the media is always on the same page, the majority of them. I know that you've seen that clip of like all of the news media is saying the exact same thing over and over again.
The Sinclair clip, yeah. That one was specific to Sinclair, yeah.
So they're doing the same thing. It's a worldwide, global MK-ULTRA technique, and that's why we have these large-scale traumatic events. It's so that they can push out something. I mean, we already know that. I'm not telling you anything that you didn't already know, and I'm probably not telling anybody that's listening that they didn't already know. But they didn't know that, unless they've watched the movie, of course, that all of this is laid out within Stanley Kubrick's The Shining.
How do I tie a thread between the first two movies in Kubrick's Odyssey by Weidner? Because the first one, if I remember correctly, it lays out that The Shining is about Stanley Kubrick soft disclosing that he was involved in the Apollo program. The second one in the series lays out that Kubrick was also explaining alchemy, like the actual alchemical transformation, the philosopher's stone and the wedding, and all of that was being laid out. And now we have a third lens to look at this, and that's it's a breakdown of the MK-ULTRA program. And I guess if you wanted to expand it to the other room 237, there's also the Native American angle. There's like a World War II. There's all these different angles within just the three Kubrick's Odysseys, which is Apollo, alchemy, and now mind control. Is it one of those three? Is it all three? Is it just like, are we just painting options, or is there a chance that it's everything? Like that Stanley Kubrick somehow created a master key that means all the things that people want it to mean?
I think that it's all of them, and I don't think that any theory outweighs anybody else's theory. I believe that they are all correct. And to your question, how does it connect to the other movies? Well, if you think about it, if he did fake the Apollo moon landing, that would mean that the footage was pre-recorded, right? And then they're putting that footage on everybody's TV everywhere in the world simultaneously at the same time. And it's fake. That's a huge MK-ULTRA program. It's probably one of the biggest MK-ULTRA programs because it's done on the world simultaneously.
You could argue just a modern version of War of the Worlds, which I know, depending on how far down the conspiracy rabbit hole you go on that one, that it was potentially funded by the Rockefeller Foundation and that they were trying to collaborate with CBS, I believe it was, to see what would the public reaction be. And they didn't get the reaction they were looking for. They hyped it up and made it sound like people went even more crazy than they actually did. But it was very much just a psychological operation and a litmus test to just see how far along their programming had been reaching at scale.
And not only that, but within The Shining, none of the TVs are seen to be plugged into any power source. There's no cable connecting any of the TVs. So it's almost like Kubrick is trying to tell you that what he did was 100% fake. If he did fake the Apollo moon, I mean, there's really no debate at this point that the Apollo moon landing footage is fake. I mean, there's so many holes in it. There's so much analysis that people have done. I mean, Bart Sobral has completely blown the lid off the entire moon landing stuff, which I've had him on before. Jay's also had him on his show. But when you look at it like, okay, well, why would he make it to where none of the TVs are like plugged in? Well, it would mean that he's trying to tell people that simultaneously that he did fake the moon landing footage, and also that you're being brainwashed to believe that this is real live footage. I mean,
Like your mic.
I didn't even touch it, bro. They're trying to block me from this moon landing stuff. But the just common sense and logic regarding the moon landing is just preposterous. Like, you're telling me that we are able to stream live video from 350,000 miles away from Earth in 1969, when just a year prior was one of the very first live broadcasts that was only like 3 hours because that's all that we could possibly do, which was a Beatles concert from another country, from England. But yet we're able to stream live video from 350,000 miles away on the moon
That's just American ingenuity for you.
with big, giant, bulky cameras, bro. Like, you would have to, you know, those big, bulky cameras that you have to put on your shoulder. Like, even the 90s ones, the VHS recorders are big and bulky that you got to put on your shoulder, and you have to look through a freaking viewfinder to see what you're looking at. So you're telling me that astronauts are up on the moon in their astronaut suits with the big dome over their head, and they're able to point a big, giant, bulky camera, make sure that everything is framed perfectly, look through the viewfinder with their giant helmet on, and be able to see what they're shooting, and the footage not look like this? But just the logistics of it and the common sense of it doesn't make any sense.
I mean, if they can fly a rocket ship, then I'm sure they can handle a camera.
Yeah, but you know how much it costs to send anything into space, dude? Like a freaking 24 pack of water is like over $1 million just to put it on the rocket ship.
Yeah, this was one of the scandals. I can't remember which Apollo mission, but somebody snuck like a roast beef sandwich on board, and you can calculate out that actually ended up costing a lot more just because the weight is down to the ounce, or maybe even like down to like the fluid ounce.
Yeah, it's just logistically doesn't make any sense. Logically doesn't make any sense.
Well, let me
And
ask you. Let's assume that all of the suppositions are true. Let's assume that Kubrick was involved with Apollo. Kubrick did have information about MK Ultra. Let's say he was an alchemist. All the things. Is he good or a bad person in this case? Like, for example, is he doing this as a breadcrumb to let people know, hey, I'm trying to expose something from the inside. Hopefully you pick up on this. Or is it more like he's rubbing our nose in it? He's saying, haha, look what I did. I'm even going to show you how I did it and who I did it with. And you're just going to have to sit there and take it.
yeah, I think that it could be a little bit of both. I mean, anybody that's trying to expose something, if that's exactly what he was doing. But I mean, I do stuff like that all the time. I do that like all the time. Like I hide things like in my thumbnails for my videos, like little Easter eggs, like just for me, because like I enjoy doing it. And I like doing it. It doesn't mean anything.
I
No, but
guess that there would be a gap though between that and say telling the entire world that you faked one of the most important top secret military missions of all time.
well, how else would you do that if you actually did? Like, who's going to actually, without you getting in trouble and without you, your life and your family and everybody around you, like going to, I mean, they would just threaten the shit out of you. I mean,
Well, I guess
if you were to even attempt to say that you did something like that, then you would be gone, bro. They would kill you immediately. So there's only a few options that you have is to try and possibly sprinkle this into your art or sprinkle this into your movies for somebody later on down the road to possibly try and figure it out. I mean, that would be the only way that you would be able to do it if that is indeed what you did. I mean, and we're under the we're taking this as he did do it. He did.
Yeah, and I guess I'm thinking too along the lines of it makes more sense to me from my own bias perspective that if it was more of a rubbing our nose in it, because otherwise the amount of risk he's putting himself and family up for just to throw some Easter eggs in that people will hopefully piece together in abstract ways, that the risk he'd be putting himself at versus the end result being a bunch of like schizo movie decoders like us, feverishly watching his movies over and over again and making notes and comparing scenes and coming up with all these theories, that is never going to raise itself to the burden of proof to actually convince like that the normie that you're talking about at the beginning of this episode of, yeah, okay, whatever, how does that help me pay my mortgage, how does that get me to drop my kids off at school on time, like none of that helps. So therefore doing it in an abstract disclosure is almost like here's all the information with none of the teeth or resources to actually make a dent anywhere, to not actually push the needle.
Well, I mean, that's really what we see with pretty much all conspiracies. That's really what all conspiracies are. You don't have enough information to actually do anything about any of this stuff.
Well, perfect segue to some of the Epstein stuff that's going on, right? Where it feels like it was right there, like it was right in the palm of our hands. We were going to see these huge elite networks being taken down and exposed, and oh my God, Alex Jones was right about this one thing finally. And then it turns out that it was just a ruse, right? There really never was a list. No one was ever going to get in trouble.
Well, it's the same thing with the Diddy stuff. Those two things hit simultaneously. So the Diddy stuff hit, he's off the hook essentially. I don't think he's going to serve any jail time at all other than what he's already served. I mean, how long has he been in there? Like a year? I mean, I don't even know what the laws are, but by the time he's even sentenced for anything, he'll be out.
This one to
a
me
year is going to count as time served, right? So if he gets 5 years, he's only got to do half of that. By the time he's sentenced, he's going to have like another 2 or 3 months, and then he's going to be out, gone. So it's kind of the same. The only person that I do think that did go down and that is still like well, of course, Ghislaine Maxwell, but none of it adds up. None of it makes any sense. Like, okay, if there is no client list, if he didn't have any of this stuff, if he didn't have a blackmail on these important high political people or, all these whatever, then why did he kill himself? Doesn't make any sense. Why would you do if they didn't have any proof, Paranoid, if they didn't have any proof, then why would he kill himself? Doesn't make any sense. And then why is Ghislaine Maxwell serving, what is it, a 25 year sentence for nothing? If there was no proof, then how is she in prison? Why is she in prison? If all this was a big bunch of nothing, she should be free too. They should let her out. They should reduce her sentence and get rid of her felonies if that's the way that they're going to play it. Because that's what it kind of seems like. They should let her out.
We should probably be actively
Ghislaine Maxwell because there is no Epstein client list.
We should be advocating. Yeah, we should be advocating to free Ghislaine and to vindicate Jeffrey, who unfortunately succumbed to his own, I guess, like false thoughts that this government was going to completely fabricate this very elaborate story, and they they nearly got away with it. And if he had just stuck it out a little bit longer, he would have seen that he would be completely vindicated. But I think that the Diddy one's a little bit more telling because to me, it's the exact same thing with Epstein, but with the Diddy case, it wasn't just Diddy that was on trial. It was anyone that's associated with Diddy that might have video footage of being with Diddy. So anyone that's ever been to one of these questionable parties, maybe in international waters or something, they're probably watching this case like, oh my God, whatever happens to the head honcho could possibly splash off on me. So the fact that he gets off on it, it's a signal to everyone else implicated, like, hey, don't worry about this. We got you. There's nothing to worry about. Even the guy in charge of it all doesn't have anything to worry about. So you definitely don't have anything to worry about. I think that was the real reason behind the whole Diddy. And to tie this into the Kubrick stuff again too, Diddy, Epstein, Eyes Wide Shut, it all kind of feels like it was painting that same exact story. It was another insider view of, hey, here's this other dynamic that's going on right in front of your eyes.
Well, in all honesty, Kubrick may have been one of those people. Whenever he died, the people in black suits showed up to his house and took all of his shit.
Like what, notes and films and cameras, or who knows?
Who knows? Who knows, dude? And but that's synonymous with several people that have been in those. I mean, Diddy, they did the same thing. They raided Diddy's house. Like it connects to like all the stuff. And well, one of the reasons it could have been done was if they bugged his house. If he was working for military intelligence, which it's basically known at this point. It was all over 2001: A Space Odyssey. At the end of 2001: A Space Odyssey, he had all these credits. He like thanked the Army intelligence, naval intelligence, everybody, almost every three-letter organization out there, and every single military organization was in the thanks and the credits of 2001: A Space Odyssey. And what probably happened was that somebody from one of these intelligence, places seen the credits and was like, "Hey, bro, you got to cut that out." Just like how Kubrick also cut out the original ending to The Shining as well, which is a whole other tangent here. But several people have had their houses raided after their death, like after they have been killed. And it could be possible that because Kubrick originally got involved with the Air Force and NASA whenever he was making Dr. Strangelove. Okay, so whenever he was making that movie, he asked the Air Force if he could see the inside of a B-2 stealth bomber. They said no because it's classified. If other people see what the inside of a B-2 stealth bomber is, they might be able to duplicate it, replicate it, blah, 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 blah. So Kubrick said, okay, well, then he took his production designer, which we have a clip of him in the movie talking about it, and he clipped out all these articles and tried to get all the information that he possibly could from what the inside of a B-2 stealth bomber looked like. And then Kubrick built a set, right? And some Air Force people came to the set of Dr. Strangelove and was like, how did you get this information? Right? We're going to launch an investigation because we told you no. We told you you couldn't see the inside of a B-2 stealth bomber. But yet you have almost the exact replica of what the inside of a B-2 stealth bomber looks like. So we believe that is the first relationship between Kubrick and the government and the military. And then we also show, how much the CIA, the FBI, these military organizations have been involved with Hollywood over the years. I mean, people have done FOIA requests and gotten back all of the information of like how they've like Transformers, the James Bond movies, Die Another Day, like all of these films were all like sponsored and like funded by these three-letter organizations and the military.
Or
I
like
mean,
it used to be kind of hidden, but now it's like a marketing plug. Now they'll say, "Go watch American Sniper." You know, this movie was created under the consultation of real CIA agents. You know, field agents and these agencies. Now it's a selling point to go and see a movie. It's not something that they necessarily keep under wraps anymore. I think the last big example was Argo, which was that Ben Affleck movie. And after Argo came out, it turned into a selling point.
that's right. But in 1968, when 2001: A Space Odyssey came out, that definitely wasn't a thing. We didn't find out or that become like a common everyday occurrence until like early to mid 2000s, where we realized that the military and the three-letter organizations and the government are also involved in funding these movies. Then when you look back into like, Laurel Canyon and Lookout Mountain, and that the Air Force had a giant film studio on top of Laurel Canyon where thousands and thousands of movies were made up there. We don't even know what those were because they're still all classified. Like right outside of Hollywood. So right outside of Hollywood, Paranoid, there was a giant military studio that was making movies. All of these top actors of that time had top secret security clearance. Ronald Reagan had top secret security clearance. Marilyn Monroe had top secret security clearance. Marilyn Monroe's house was also bugged. She was being watched by the military. Her house was raided after her death. Mary Pinchot Meyer, which was another mistress of JFK, her house was also raided after her death. Her diary was stolen. Like, what's going on here? Cary Grant, James Stewart, all these people had top secret. These big name, big time actors all had top secret security clearance for Lookout Mountain, which is right outside of LA. Thousands and thousands of movies are being developed there. They had sound stages, they had an underground bunker, they had a helicopter pad, and all this is going on right outside of LA.
Cary Grant has also been attributed with the one that introduced Hollywood to LSD because his doctor, one of his therapists, was basically charging him not adjusted for inflation, like $200 a visit. He gave him $200. He'd give you some LSD that he had access to, and he would use that for this early therapy before anyone really even knew what it was. And then through that, Cary Grant starts recommending this LSD therapy to all his co-stars that he's working with. And then it slowly spreads out from there. But it shows that Hollywood had this inner tract to top secret government chemicals and operate. Sometimes I even wonder, maybe it's a silly thought, but is it the government contracting Hollywood, or is it Hollywood contracting the government? Is Hollywood hiring the spooks in order to make sure that there's more people that want to watch American movies? You know what I mean?
That's a really good question. It seems like that it's the government that's contracting Hollywood, that the government and the military and the three-letter organizations are all in behind Hollywood. But, I mean, it could run the other way as well, and it'd be its own entity. But, yeah, dude, when it gets to the Epstein stuff and, and that's another thing that just recently happened too, was like Virginia Giuffre's death. So, and another thing with the Epstein stuff, dude, if there is no client list, then what did Virginia Giuffre sue Prince Andrew for? And why did he settle out of court for reportedly $10 million?
I think this is a technicality that there was only one name and it was Prince Andrew, and technically one name's not a list. It's just a name on a piece of paper. So there was the law wasn't ready for the technicalities to be thrown on it. But yeah, I mean, she got before she died, she got hit by a car, right? Or a truck or something.
School bus, apparently.
Yeah, hit by a school bus.
Yeah, but the school bus thing is so weird. There's I had originally thought that she had died from the school bus accident, but she really didn't. And then she posted that cryptic Instagram post where she says that This is the doctors have only given me, what does she say? How many days left to live?
This was
3
nearly
days.
in real time. We all saw this happen, but it happened so fast and completely under the radar.
100%. No one's talking about it now. It's like completely gone. But she wasn't the only one though, dude. She's one of 3, bro. Actually, one of 4 that, but one of 3 in that, um, that she's also died from accidental drug overdose. So this Fox News
That was the
article,
official.
yes. Well, a drug overdose. Her lawyer is saying that he believed that it was accidental, but they're ruling it as a drug overdose. But this Fox News article, Jeffrey Epstein case, Virginia Giuffre's death marks third loss. Experts say predators need to be punished. Okay. So if you scroll down here a little bit, you'll see that Caroline Andriano, who testified against Ghislaine Maxwell during her sex trafficking trial, died May 23rd, 2023, after an accidental drug overdose. According to the Palm Beach Post, Andriano died as a result of an overdose of fentanyl, methadone, and alprazolam in West Palm Beach, Florida hotel room. But Leah Sky Patrick died at the age of 29 after a drug overdose in West Palm Beach, Florida.
The old stomping ground, right? This is Epstein's stomping ground.
Yeah, authorities said that Patrick was found inside of her hotel room in West Palm Beach, Florida, adding that the overdose was accidental. Okay, so you got 3 people that were all Epstein victims that were speaking out against him and Ghislaine Maxwell, who have all died of accidental drug overdoses, which 1 or 2, you can be like, okay, maybe it's a coincidence, but 3, but then there's a 4th one too, but it wasn't an accidental drug overdose. She just jumped out of like a 20-story building.
Well, she only did that one time though.
Yeah, just one time. That's it. Doesn't matter anymore. No Epstein client list. But the Virginia Giuffre case is really insane. I mean, I 100% think that it was her husband. Earlier in the year, in January, her husband beat her to like an edge of her life, and then she went to the hospital, and then he turned around and filed a lawsuit against her, saying that she was the one that beat him up. And then the charges didn't go through, and then she's in the hospital in March, saying that she only has a couple of days to live, and she's looking exactly like what was described earlier in the year, that what she would have looked like earlier in the year, with the bruised eye, looking like she had been held down and repeatedly beaten in the side of the face
By a school bus.
By a school bus, of course. And I think that the school bus thing was a cover for going to the hospital. Because on all accounts, the police said that the school bus accident was minor and there were no injuries. But then she comes out looking super bruised up, her left eye super bruised up, like cuts on her neck, her left cheek swollen, her septum deviated. But the police said that it was a minor accident. So she went to the hospital thinking, because she couldn't say that it was her husband that did it, because he had the restraining order against her, and they wouldn't believe her. So she went in there with the bus accident story as the cover story for her husband beating the shit out of her. And then 2 weeks after she's released from the hospital, she gets home, and then her husband finishes the job. That's what I think happened. It makes sense to me. I think that that's a very plausible explanation. And the only how they even met was because Epstein sent her to Thailand to be a masseuse, to massage school. Okay, and then that's how she met her husband, Robert Giuffre. from Epstein sending her to massage school in Thailand. Okay, so the whole thing is just is super screwed up, and I 100% believe that there should have been an investigation into Robert Giuffre, her husband. But I believe her body is already cremated. They said that it was going to take up to 2 years for an autopsy report, which there's a statute of limitations in Australia that is like 6 months to like 3 years. So even if the coroner were to find something that is inconsistent with a drug overdose, it won't matter by then because the body will have already been cremated and the statute of limitations will already be up for any criminal lawsuit.
With Virginia Giuffre out of the way and the Epstein client list being non-existent, who do you think has a better chance at sort of like a re-imaging tour, Harry or Prince Andrew?
Prince Andrew was already trying to do it. He had already paid her. Well, we don't know how much exactly he paid her. It was upwards of $10 million to settle out of court, and he was already on the tour before she even died, and he's still on the tour after she died, going out there and trying to say that the photo is faked.
Well, because he doesn't sweat, and that guy was sweating.
He had his ex-girlfriend go on Piers Morgan and say that she went to the exact house of where that photo was taken with Ghislaine, Virginia, and Prince Andrew, and said that there's no way that the photo could be real, that it was cropped, that it was a cropped photo, that they cropped Prince Andrew out and then put them into the photo because she said that the doorway wasn't big enough. The doorway wasn't big enough to have Prince Andrew, Virginia Giuffre, and Ghislaine Maxwell in the background, so the thing's fake. This was after her death. This was after she had died. He's already been trying to make his way back into the royal family. So I think it's going to be Prince Andrew. And they needed to clean her out of the way for all this because she was the driving force behind like all of it, almost all of it. She was the driving force. She was the one that was literally paying a lot of these other women's court fees for the lawsuits that they were in. She was paying them all.
With
he was helping
Prince Andrew's money, or where was she getting this money from?
Well, I don't know if she got all. I don't think she got all that in a big lump sum, which is another reason why I think they wanted to take her out. Someone wanted to take her out, which I'm convinced that it was her husband, but he probably made some kind of deal or something along with it. But I don't think that she got all that money up front. It had to have come out in like increments over a period of years.
Like when you win the lottery.
Whenever you settle out of court or something, like let's say that I sued a big corporation for like millions of dollars. You're not going to see all that money up front. Let's say that the suit was settled. I was owed $20 million. They're not required to give you all that $20 million up front. You get that in like increments over decades. So she probably seen a fraction of that, maybe a quarter of it already. I believe that lawsuit was settled out of court in 2023. So she had 2 years of it. So there's not even really any guarantee that she's seen any of it at that point. If
we're talking about disclosures, Giuffre's out of the way, Kubrick's dead. Who else is out there right now doing these massive CIA disclosures out in the open? Are we just not going to realize until they also finish their body of work and then they die and then someone finally puts together that all the Michael Bay movies were putting together this intricate tapestry? Or is there someone now that we can look at?
Oh, I'm 100% sure that there is. I mean, it's just like, buying stocks now, right? You want to buy something that's like super low for something super high in the future that's going to go up. You don't want to buy something that's already high. You've already lost out on it, right? It's kind of like buying Bitcoin at full price. Unless it goes up to $1 million, you're going to be holding on to that Bitcoin for a really long time. But if you find something really low now that in 20 years is going to be a Bitcoin price, then you're going to make a shit ton of money. But for sure, there's somebody out there.
What do you
For
think
sure.
about Trevor Moore from Whitest Kids You Know? Do you know who this is? He was a comedian.
I love The Whitest Kid You Know. It was a great show.
So
Laughed every episode that I watched.
So sometimes Trevor Moore's name gets thrown out like he was getting a little bit too close to the truth, almost like a more modern version of like a Bill Hicks.
Yeah, see, that's the thing too. Is like, wasn't that an accident? Was that an accidental drug overdose? How did he die?
This was him, I believe, falling off of a balcony or something drunk. Which could have been. My first thought was, well, that's what they said about Frank Olson too. He just kind of fell out the window.
And with the first director of the Navy,
he had a handler with him at the time. I don't know if Trevor Moore had a handler. I just know that it's another name that comes up in that he was in Hollywood. He was disclosing these top secret operations, whether he had inside knowledge or not, that he was just becoming a burden because it was exposing too many things to too many people. So it was more convenient for him to fall off a balcony than to not.
Yeah, I don't know why I'm blanking on this dude's name. He was big friends with JFK. He basically got JFK to run for Senate in Texas. Dang, bro.
Hollywood or politics?
Politics. Anyway, it'll come to me here later on whenever they're doing all these old people. What is going on? Whenever I say his name, you're going to be like, what? How did you blink on this?
Well, JFK is another one of those examples that he was getting too close too soon. He was also representative of a young voice in politics, which we haven't seen before or since, and also someone that was talking about dismantling all these agencies. So he kind of had to go out for more than just one or two or three or even five reasons.
James Forrestal, bro. How did you not know James Forrestal, dude? How could you not come up with James Forrestal, paranoid? But the same thing happened to James Forrestal, right? Which this might be connected into with the MJ-12 stuff and the ufologists and UFO-nauts claim was a reverse engineered UFO program way back in the day. But apparently the same thing happened to him. They locked him up in like a psych ward. And then he jumped out of a building. Killed himself too.
When you ever join the military or government service, it should have the little fast talking announcer at the end that's like, may cause blah, 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 blah. And like, that's one of the things that military service may cause you spontaneously jumping out of a window.
Yeah, sometimes that just happens, bro. Okay, so Forrestal told associates he had decided to resign. He was reportedly shattered when Truman abruptly asked for his resignation. His letter of resignation tendered on March 28th, 1949, and his condition steadily deteriorated. See, they're trying to make him out to be like crazy and all that, right? Then they put him into a clinic in Kansas diagnosed with severe depression. Then he went to the National Naval Medical Center in Bethesda, Maryland. He was checked in. The decision to house him on the 16th floor instead of the first floor was justified in the same way. Forrestal's condition was officially announced as nervous and physical exhaustion. So he was nervous and he had physical exhaustion. Let's lock him up. His head doctor, Captain Rhines, diagnosed his condition as depressed and reactive depression. As a person who prized, once stated his hobby, obscurity, forestall with his policies, have been the constant target of vicious personal attacks from columnists, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Lost 12 pounds. Let's see where he jumped out of the window.
So he was just getting beach body ready. That's all it sounds like.
Yeah, with some circumstantial depression.
And this is a pretty typical.
His body was found on the ledge outside of the room of the 384 building of the National Medical Center on the 1:50 a.m. Pronounced dead at 5:55 a.m. Sunday, May 22nd, 1949. So he jumped out of the 16-story window, but there's a bunch of theories as that, there is always that someone pushed him. I mean, you have that same type of scenario with why am I blanking on all these people's names? I shouldn't even say anything before if I can't think of their name. Jack Ruby. When after Jack Ruby shot Oswald, he was then visited with Jolly West, right? Jolly West came in, gave him a little dose of the old LSD, and he was out on. He did a interview before saying that he's the only one that knew why that he did it, and that it was high up people within the government that told him to essentially kill Oswald. And then gets into his jail cell, gets a visit from old Jolly West, and then he goes into like a severe like psychosis and starts rambling on about a bunch of nonsense. Right. See, if they can make
slowly deteriorates in front of the public as well, where you start getting these weekly, monthly check-ins, and you realize that he's on a one-way ticket to not coming back.
Yep. Then he dies in prison of cancer, I believe.
Well, maybe it's for the better because he ruined any chance of us finding out why Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone that day. What sort of grievances he had so that we could prevent the next would-be assassin.
Well, I mean, that's the whole thing is that Oswald didn't even know that the president had been shot. Like he obviously, and he was never charged for shooting JFK.
Which is weird because
never charged with it, bro. The public is the people that slapped that on him. He was charged with the murder of a police officer.
JD Tippit.
Yeah. And then everybody in the public was like, "Did you also kill the president? Did you also kill JFK?"
Well, in the memoirs of John de Mohrenschildt, I believe it was, or George de Mohrenschildt, who was the liaison between Lee Harvey Oswald and Marina Oswald when they repatriated, they came back to the States. He was the one that was introducing them to other Slavic and Russian immigrants to get them like reacquainted. The guy also grew up with Jackie Bouvier at the time. He used to brag about that she would sit on his knee when he told stories. He was in Haiti when JFK was assassinated, and he said in his own personal memoirs that as soon as he heard that JFK had been assassinated, he knew that it was Lee Harvey Oswald, this guy that he already had an acquaintance with because of being that liaison when he came back into the States. So even if Lee Harvey Oswald didn't know that he shot JFK, his handler did. His handler knew right away.
That's the cover up, dude. That's the cover up. I mean, there was an FBI informant that was working with this guy that was like, I think it was less than a month before the assassination. And the informant, the FBI asked him, if you were going to murder the president, how would you do it? He said he would do it from one of the windows, that he would take a gun up there in pieces. You wouldn't take the whole gun up there because it's too suspicious. You break down the gun and you take it up in pieces. He said, oh, and the FBI informant said, oh, well, how would you be sure that the one of the windows would be open? He said, oh, well, they wouldn't check if all the windows were closed. There's going to be too much going on. And then he was like, oh, well, how would you get away? And he said, oh, well, they'll just pick somebody up. They'll have to make an example out of somebody, so they'll get a patsy. This is what was on tape from the FBI less than a month before the event at Dealey Plaza.
And there were two
And
other
it's exactly what happened. It's exactly what happened.
Well, there were two other test runs too. There was one in Miami, and then there was another in Chicago that didn't happen. That one of the Secret Service agents noticed, hey, those windows are unsecured. Hey, there's a clear line to hit the president from here. So, and I believe in each of those instances, they also had patsies. They had these Marine snipers that had been disgruntled in a public way that were just ready to be, turned into a patsy. So, if anything, Dealey Plaza was like attempt number 3. And it almost seems that if Dealey Plaza hadn't happened, there would have been a Dealey Plaza after the Dealey Plaza. Like that was going to happen at some point. The formula had already been laid out, and they had already staged this in up to 3 cities, if not more.
Yeah, it's unbelievable, dude.
What do you think about the whole King Kill 33 ritual? Like the supernatural / like esoteric ritual that it had to be done in a certain way at a certain time with certain angles. Do you give any credit to that?
Here, let me pull up this article. I'm going to share it out real quick. Share screen. Okay, so this is a Vanity Fair article. Can you see it?
Yep.
Why JFK staged his own murder in a James Bond-inspired spy film 2 months before his assassination. The untold tale, and never-before-seen photos of a 1963 home movie directed by Jacqueline Kennedy at the Hammersmith farm. Okay, so this article just like goes into like this entire scenario of JFK faking his death before, like, 2 months before the supposed real assassination, right? And that how all of the same Secret Service agents were used. Jackie called up all the Secret Service agents and was like, hey, right here it is. Jackie asked the agents to hurriedly drive to the main house and react as if they had just heard shots. Landa says the agents entered the home and found the president lying on the floor with a foyer of ketchup smeared on him. Jackie sat up in the staircase, directing the action from the very spot where she and JFK had been photographed on their wedding day 10 years earlier. Here's the real. There's them all showing up to the house for the fake home movie assassination film by Jackie Kennedy. It's just very telling.
The actual assassination, Jackie Kennedy was staging an assassination with JFK.
I mean, that seems like a trial run, doesn't it? Like, let's get all the same people involved that's going to be involved on that day. Let's have them already kind of prepared for it with this fake one. And then the only way that it's going to be convincing is if we do it in public. That's the only way we're going to 100% get away with it. We just can't kill Osama bin Laden just can't die of a heart attack in a cave.
And then they just bury him at sea and no one sees it.
Right? We got to send SEAL Team 6 in there so that we can go, yeah, America.
And then bury him at sea where no one sees it.
Yep. Don't let anyone see his body. Just, give him that proper sea burial.
I mean, so what does that mean? Does that mean that you believe that there's credence in an actual like magical plot to assassinate the president at his height in an actual king kill ritual?
I think that a lot of it was like it's just staged. It's a whole stage thing. I mean, JD Tippit died the exact same day. JD Tippett's nickname on the Dallas police force was JFK because he looked identical to JFK. Okay, it's a ritual because only JD Tippit died that day. JFK did not die. So in order to cast the spell over the entire population and on the entire world, someone had to die. They had to kill someone. And the whole thing behind that is that they did kill JFK, just not the president JFK. We killed someone that looked identical to JFK and even had the nickname JFK.
Does this imply JFK was in on his own assassination then?
I think so. You'll have to watch JFKX Solving the Crime. Have a century to get the full breakdown on this bad boy.
That's a hell of a lead-in for that. Here I've got so many more questions for you, but I've got a much more convenient way that I've packaged them all up. I'm just gonna freaking pepper them at you nonstop. Let's just do it right now.
Hey, conspiracy buffs! I double dare you to take some PCP, the Paranormal Conspiracy Probe. On your marks, get set, and go.
All right, this will be easy and painless. I will disappear for a brief moment, but I'll be back. Here's how it works. I'm just going to mention a topic or a conspiracy or a premise, and I just want you to rate it from 1 to 10 on having no credibility being 1 and having as much credibility as you could give someone on a 10. So, for example, if I said Bigfoot, to rate Bigfoot from 1 to 10 in credibility, what would you give them?
Bigfoot, 5.
How about gray aliens?
That's a complicated one, dude, because you don't know if I'll say this. If gray aliens exist, they are 100% completely manufactured by the government. They are created inorganic organism, possibly even a robot. But as far as aliens from outer space, 0.
What about shape-shifting reptilians?
0.
What about Hollow Earth?
8.
Flat Earth?
0.
Arctic ice wall hiding us from some other civilization?
5.
Going off of the Hollow Earth, what about the idea that Ghislaine Maxwell had access to Inner Earth through Terramar or one of her submarine, excursions?
1.
What about that Stanley Kubrick directed the Apollo moon landings? I feel like I know, but I have to ask.
I'm gonna say a 9 just because it's I think it's highly, highly, highly likely, but I'll reserve that 10% for maybe he didn't.
What about the idea that a human being has stepped foot on the moon in the last 100 years, televised or not?
Who? I'm not going to give it a rating, but if someone did step foot on the moon, they did not go in like standard rocketry. If we somehow did get to the moon, it would have been in some sort of anti-gravity craft that we have created.
How about astral projection being a real thing and not just fancy daydreaming with a cooler name.
10.
About ESP, like actually being able to kind of like tell what someone's thinking, either if it's in the front of their mind or if it's using the little cards that they would use in like a Randy challenge.
10.
What about Stranger Things style sort of astral projection where you're actually spying on some foreign Soviet general?
10.
And what about the logical conclusion of that, which is also inspired by the Project Monarch books, I think by Preston Nichols, and I can't remember everyone else that was involved in those series, but that basically when 11 in the series is looking out for this Russian, then this creature from another dimension notices her, and it kind of tears open this rift in time space, and now waking reality has to deal with these evil entities.
I'm talking about the Montauk Project.
Talking about the Montauk Project and the Montauk Monster and some of the claims and linked to like Philadelphia Experiment. Yeah.
Yeah, Preston Nichols got all that stuff from the movie The Philadelphia Experiment. He just ripped off that movie that came out like 15 years prior. I want to say 1.
Okay.
Wait, was 1 the lowest or was 0 the lowest? I think
whatever. It's 1 and 0 or
1 and 0, same thing. 1 and 0, 1.
Yeah. What about celebrity clones?
I don't know if I necessarily believe in actual clones, but I mean it is possible. I mean, how long ago did they do like Dolly the sheep? Like that was like in the late 90s, right? They were cloning sheep in like the late 90s, and like that was like, and then there was so much talk around like the efficacy of like cloning back then, and we haven't heard about cloning in a long ass time. I feel like that if they haven't done it, if they have done it, we just haven't heard about it, and I do think that it is possible. I think it's a high on the rate. If they can do animals and they can do sheep, they can do cats. I mean, I'm pretty sure that there's a whole cat cloning thing that you can, like in California, that you can take a DNA from your old cat and get the cat clone. So if they can do it with animals, then I'm sure that they figured it out with humans. We just aren't privy to it, and they're probably never going to tell us. So I'd say highly likely at an 8.
How about the premise that I could go, let's say it's not me, let's say some random atheist / agnostic 14-year-old buys an on-demand print book from Amazon called How to Summon Demons for Dummies, and it's got the Lesser Keys of Solomon in it or whatever. They order this book and they read it end to end and they complete a ritual. What are the chances they could summon an actual demon?
See, I have a different idea and a different thought of how demons work. I don't think that demons can. I think demons are like a psychological problem. I think it's your mental state. So, could it mess with this kid's mental state? Absolutely. Could he be convinced and paranoid to the point that he thinks that an actual demon is possessing his body? Absolutely. But as far as like an actual demon,
a demon.
No.
Last one, I guess, on that same topic. What would you rate a classic like Greek daemon in that you conjure up this function, this physical function, this self-perpetuating force to help you build a temple that'll go and grab a huge pillar out from the Dead Sea and raise it and put it into Solomon's temple for you? What about the idea that something like that could even exist?
I mean, I think that we would have to be a completely different society than we are now. I don't know. We don't see it happen now. I mean, we don't see people raising giant pillars out of the dirt and out of the ground to build some kind of giant temple. I mean, and if it was possible, then it would have been something to do with a society back then, and maybe something to do with I don't know. I would say in today's age, 0.
Okay, I lied. I do have one last one. 9/11 was an inside job.
10.
That was the one correct answer that you gave. So congratulations. We'll send you a little 9/11 sticker and like a little TV shirt, the whole 9 yards.
The only one that I got right, bro. Come on.
The only one you got right. You got close on some of the other ones, but that one was a 10. Technically, it's supposed to be an 11, but 10 is between 9 and 11, so I usually accept 10 as the answer.
Okay.
Tell people where they can find you, what projects you got going on, how many times this week they should go and watch Clockwork Shining.
Please go watch Clockwork Shining on Amazon Prime. You can also watch it on Tubi as well, or Apple TV Plus. You can also watch JFKX, Solving the Crime of the Century, on Amazon and on Tubi. And I'm currently working on my latest documentary, getting ready to shoot it here within the next month, which is about the psychic spy government program. And thanks for having me on, brother. Really appreciate it. If you would like to reach out to me personally, I hope no one got super mad at me for my rating scale on there. I know some of them people will be furious, bro. But that's just how I feel, okay? That's just the way that I feel. And my personal beliefs doesn't have to be your personal beliefs, bro. And if you'd like to reach out to me personally, you can find me on X and Instagram at Raised by Giants Pod and Raised by Giants 8. And if you'd like to come over to my YouTube channel, Raised by Giants, everyone is welcome over there, no matter your opinions, thoughts, and ideas. And also on any and all podcast platforms. So Apple, Google, Spotify, Amazon. Thanks for having me on, brother. Really appreciate it. It was a fun one.
Likewise, man. And I got to ask you too, have you been able to get a read from normies after putting these documentaries out on Tubi and on Amazon Prime? Like, do you get sort of normie feedback and see how accepted your theories are amongst the non-schizo conspiracy theorists like fan base?
Yeah, man, I've had a lot of people reach out to me over JFKX. They're like, "Oh my god, like I can't believe this like happened." Like we present a lot of really good, solid evidence in there. We have the clearest version of the Zapruder film that's ever been seen in that movie. And with the Clockwork Shining, I think it's kind of hit or miss, because if you're not really a huge Kubrick fan, then it's not the like most appealing to you. Like I've ran into people that they'll be like, "What's your favorite movie?" And I'll be like, "It's Shining," and they're like, "Oh." And then it's another one of those things that I don't get asked any other questions about it, you know? And, but there's something for everyone within A Clockwork Shining. It's not just about Stanley Kubrick and The Shining. It's also about LA. It's about the music industry. It's about the film industry. It's about serial killers, Charles Manson, the Manson murders, the Sharon Tate murders. It's about MK-ULTRA. It's about mind control. So it's all of these things kind of all wrapped up into one, and it's almost a 2-hour long movie. So even if you're not interested in Stanley Kubrick or in The Shining, you're still going to find something in there that you're going to like. I mean, I have had some people reach out to me that's not familiar with any of this stuff and have been like, "Holy crap, I didn't know this about the music industry." You know, I didn't know that the music industry was basically created and funded by the CIA, and how all these top musicians all had high-ranking fathers in the intelligence and in the military. You know, so that's kind of like a shocker for them that some of their favorite bands and favorite musicians growing up were kind of all part of this CIA ran music in Hollywood industry. So that's a really big one. And then how the hippie movement was basically completely, you know, co-opted by the CIA as well. They were funding the LSD to the hippie movement. And then the Manson Tate murders is what put the nail in the coffin of the entire hippie movement. made people step back and be like, oh, hey, I don't want to be involved. If this is what we're doing now and it involves murder, so the CIA essentially created it was a problem reaction solution, right? They created the problem, they gauged the reaction, then they gave the solution, which was to end it. And how they ended it was the Manson Tate murders.
The old Hegelian dialectic trick. It's every time. And let me just say too, if anyone out there is thinking, oh, that sounds interesting, but I don't really care that much about Kubrick, you're wrong. You should figure out why you don't care about Kubrick and fix that, and then start caring about Kubrick, and then immediately go and watch Clockwork Shining, watch JFKX, and follow Ryder Lee at all the places. I've got them all linked in the description. As always, again, thanks so much. Long overdue. We've talked with each other on plenty of other podcasts. I finally got you here and made you take some PCP. So thank you.
Thanks, Paranoid. I appreciate it. I'm going to have you on my show here soon too, brother.
Ready for a cosmic conspiracy about Stanley Kubrick, moon landings, and the CIA? Go visit nasacomic.com.
nasacomic.com, CIA's biggest con. Stanley Kubrick put us on, that's why we're singing this song. I'm nasacomic.com. Go visit nasacomic.com. Go visit nasacomic.com. Yeah, go visit nasacomic.com. Oh, nasacomic.com, CIA's biggest con. Stanley Kubrick put us on, that's why we're singing this song. I'm nasacomic.com. Go visit nasacomic.com. Go visit nasacomic.com. Yeah, go visit nasacomic.com.
Never a Straight Answer is a 40-page comic about Stanley Kubrick directing the Apollo space missions.
Yeah, go visit nasacomic.com.
This is the perfect read for comic, Kubrick, or conspiracy fans of all ages. For more details, visit nasacomic.com.
Paranoid. Yo. I scribble my life away, driven to write the page. Will it enlighten your brain? Give you the flight, my plane, paper the highs ablaze. Somewhat of an amazing feel when it's real to real. You will engage it. Your favorite, of course, the Lord of an arrangement. I gave you the proper results to hit the pavement. If they get emotional, hey, maybe your language, a game, how they playing it well without Lakers. Evade them, whatever the cost, they are the shapeshift. Snakes get decapitated, met is the apex. Execution of flame you out, nuclear bomb distributed at war, rather gruesome for eyes to see. Max them out, then I light my trees. Blow it off in the face, you're despising me for what though? Calculated and rather cutthroat. Paranoid American must be all the blunt smoke for real. Lord, give me a day away, vacate. They wait around to hate whatever they say. Matters not in the least bit. We get heavy rotate when a beat hits, so thank us, you're welcome. Fuck the niggas for real, you're welcome. They ain't never had a deal, you're welcome. Man, they lacking appeal, you're welcome. Yet they doing it still, you're welcome.